Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and today it is time for our June garden goals and our May garden recap. So what I've been doing is I've been doing a garden tour at the very beginning of each month and then following it up with the next day with my goals for the next month, and then also recapping my goals from the month prior. And I found that a lot of people really like this. It's not the most popular video I do every month, but a lot of y'all who have been following me for a while really like this because it gives you an opportunity to go ahead and set some of your own goals, look and see what my goals are. We can compare and contrast, and then we can also grow along together throughout the month. So here we are. We just wrapped up May. May was a lot. Beautiful month, but the weather was pretty intense. This last week we've had rain nearly every day and torrential downpours, like 4 or 5 inches a day, and it's been pretty intense. I haven't gotten to spend as much time in the garden as I would like because the rain has been so intense, so that's unfortunate. And then the humidity has really been cranking up because of all that wind, all that rain. So even though it's only like 85 or 86, the humidity comes through and it makes it feel like in its 90s. And even one day we had where it felt like it was in the triple digits. The heat index was in the triple digits. It was ridiculous. And of course we ended up having some pretty severe storms coming through, including one that had 70+ mph winds, which did have some damage throughout the garden. I am very lucky for the level of damage I had. Still disappointing because I did lose one of my favorite trees, one of my favorite expensive trees. But all in all, the garden will recover just fine, and we'll be looking for a new tree. Most probably we won't plant that until the fall because truthfully we're going to the hottest time of the year. It's just not a good time to plant a tree in my area. Okay, so I like to start with the top 3 videos from May. The first video that was at the very top for May was the May garden tour, that's really exciting. I like doing the garden tours. Like I said, I like to do them at the beginning of the month, and so it's kind of fun because you can kind of just see how the garden changes throughout the month when you watch all the following videos as well. And so the May garden tour is really fun, just walking through. My husband Jeff always does the filming for me, and we have a really good time walking through the space. It's really nice because it forces me to look at so many elements of my garden, which I think is really important. And a lot of time I'll go outside and I'm tasked with something very particular, and I get kind of distracted from looking at other things. So having the garden tour is always really fun and always really good, and I always get really good feedback from you all regarding what some of the issues are that I'm dealing with in that garden. All right, number 2 video for May was the harsh pruning of a late spring garden, which was super fun. I love pruning. It's like my favorite thing to do. I find it extremely therapeutic. So I went through and did some really harsh pruning on lots of different things in the area. I believe this was the one where I did the spirea. I think that's right. If not, then it was a bunch of other stuff. But basically, oh no, it wasn't the spirea. This was towards the front of the garden. So this was focused on lots of flowers. And I did this harsh pruning after my local garden tour because then that gave me the opportunity to really just, I left all the blooms in there for the tour, and then afterwards go back and hack everything back and allow them to have a new fresh flush prior to getting super, super hot in my area. And I love a good pruning, and it looks really harsh, but for my area, if you just leave those blooms on the plants, we get hot, the plants think, oh, I've bloomed already, now I need to make seeds, and now I don't want to make anything. I don't want to produce anything. So you definitely have to keep them pruned back in order to keep blooms continuously going, especially during the hotter weather. Okay, and then the third video was Want More Summer Blooms, and that's where I did gladiola bulbs. I am way behind on gladiola bulbs, but I went ahead and planted them all up in grow bags and hooked up drip irrigation to them, and they're doing great. All of those are now poking through the surface, which is really exciting. I need to go ahead and plant an additional round. I was trying to spread them out and succession plant them, so that means planting them every 2 to 3 weeks, and then and by that, having my blooms spread out instead of having all the gladiola blooms at the same time. So I do need to plant at least one more round of gladiola bulbs. I do have another area where I could probably plant a few more, but that was really fun, and it's especially fun to already see those coming up because those bulbs are a little bit older. I bought them earlier in the spring and they've been sitting and a little bit dried out, but now that they've had water and we've had so much rain, I think it's going to be extremely helpful for that. So it is fun to see them all peeking up. And I do think probably by mid to end of July, we will see lots of gladiola blooms. Now, my favorite video for the month, and I usually pick one that I love but didn't get like tons and tons of hits, but that's okay because I really enjoy making them. But my favorite one was ordering seeds for fall annuals. And that was really fun because I started ordering all the seeds. I ordered specifically from Swallowtail Garden Seeds, and I ordered a whole bunch of stuff to start lots of beautiful annuals in fall colors, and the idea is to start them in the month of June and then have them ready to go once we get to September and October. So I'm doing this as a really big budget saver as opposed to like falling for all the beautiful fall plants at all the nurseries and spending hundreds of dollars that way. Here I've spent like $75 on seeds, and hopefully I'll have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of plants. Very exciting. Now, I was going to start my seedlings earlier. Truthfully, I was going to start them about this first week in June, but in realization, in hindsight, when I thought about it, I'm actually leaving town to go to Alaska with my family for 10 days. And I just don't feel comfortable starting seedlings now and then having somebody else have to take care of them for 10 days. Because y'all know in the beginning, you really have to baby some seeds. So I'm going to hold off on that, and then I'm going to start them all at the end of June when I get back from our Alaskan cruise. And yes, I'm so excited about the Alaskan cruise. This will be the first time my kids have ever been on a cruise. It's my first time to Alaska. I love Alaska. I watch documentaries on Alaska. Anything on National Geographic in Alaska, I love watching. It's not that I want to live in Alaska. I'm just fascinated by the people of Alaska, and I'm fascinated by the scenery and just the lush, beautiful quality and kind of untouched quality of Alaska. I don't want to live there, but visiting sounds really good. Okay, before we get to our June garden goals, let's talk about May garden goals. So what I like to do is I like to look at my 5 main goals for May that I wrote down for last month, and then I like to grade myself on them. And sometimes I do really good, and sometimes I fail, and sometimes I get a 0 because I didn't do anything regarding that goal. But it is really kind of fun to just kind of look back. I try to give myself grace because life is life, and I can't always get to everything. And I feel like, especially with garden, and of course, you know, we have a family, you know, I have a family of kids, you just get easily sidetracked. Things pop up out of nowhere and you get sidetracked going down there, and then all of a sudden it's the end of the month and you're like, oops, oh, I didn't get to that. Okay, so my first goal for May was finish planting all the seedlings. And I worded it finish planting all the seedlings. So if you base it just on that, I would give myself like a 95. Like we're in really good shape. I planted almost all the little bitty seedlings. I got all the zinnias planted. I got marigolds planted. I got all the seedlings that I had grown for Kristen. Those are out the door to her. However, I didn't get to things like all the caladium bulbs that I had already started, or all the calla lily bulbs. So there still are a lot of plants to plant, but regarding seedlings, I did really, really good. So definitely like a 95% regarding that. Still have a lot more things to continue planting. Number 2 on my list was start more sunflowers. I'd give myself about a 50 on that. I did start more sunflowers. I didn't start as many as I would have liked. I still have 2 different beds that I want to add a bunch of sunflowers in. But at this point in time, we're direct sowing, so that's really exciting. So I should just be able to pop those in really quick in the next day or so and catch up on that. I've been trying to succession plant my sunflowers, so I've been trying to plant them about 2 to 3 weeks apart. So I don't get all the sunflowers at one time, but I get, you know, one batch for, you know, a couple of weeks, and then we move on to another batch so that I can have blooms for longer throughout the summer. But definitely planting more sunflowers. Specifically, we're going to be planting a whole bunch of pro-cut sunflowers because I love to use those for arrangements. But definitely, I give myself a 50%. I think I could have done better, but I didn't do 0. I mean, I did get some out there, so that's a good start. Okay, third on my list is install new garden bed and arch. And I would give myself, I guess, a 50% on that one as well. I guess I'm not doing really well. I didn't do very good on my grades this month. But I did get the new garden beds out, which is exciting. And I got one filled before realizing how much soil it was going to take. And it's a lot. So I was trying to wait for budget to cycle. And then also I have many of the parts to build the new arch, which I'm really excited to show you guys because I'm using some interesting equipment to do that, or an interesting method to do that. That's a no concrete method. So I'm looking forward to showing you all that. And I did get those supplies in with the exception of the actual lumber, but I have not put that together. And basically what I need to do is I need to fill that other bed. So I only filled one. I need to fill the other bed so it's nice and solid in place before I start building an arch. I don't want to build an arch and then that bed shift and maneuver. So I'd like to just get that bed situated and in its place before I go in and build the arch. But I think that I did pretty good getting those beds filled and taken care of. Just ended up being a whole lot more than what I had in my head. In my head, what I had ordered was oval shape. But then when I look back at my notes, I realized I had decided to do rectangular shape and a little bit taller in order to coordinate with the other existing raised beds. And so I had bought all my soil based off of that smaller oval shape, only to realize I had the larger rectangle shape. I'm glad to have plenty more gardening space, but we'll have to wait to get the rest of that bed filled. And then we'll get to the arch as well this month. Number 4 on my list was French drains in the backyard. And I mean, I would give myself 100% regarding effort, but my contractor, it's been a really, really wet month and we had some miscommunication issues and we have got it all figured out. So they are coming this week to get the French drains in and taken care of. Oh my gosh, I wish I had had them before like 9 inches of rain in 2 days. That would have been really, really great. But it is what it is. So I already put down the down payment for it, which is exciting, and we've got everything figured out. So I give myself 100% on it. Is the project done? No, it's not done. Will it be done by the end of June? I certainly hope so. I would really hope so, because these French drains are a really big piece of the puzzle for what I'm doing on the front half of my backyard garden, where we installed all that mulch and where we're installing the new beds and the new arch. So it is really important to get that French drain in so that I can move forward with some of my other projects. And then last, my number 5 goal for the month of May was to enjoy the local garden tour, which I very much did. It was very fun. We had quite a few people. I got to spend a lot of time chatting. It was so fun to hug some of y'all and just put a face to the name, which was very fun. Several of y'all, I had people bring me gifts, which I was just like shocked. I had plants and notes and all kinds of stuff. I thought it was really fun. I learned a lot from this garden tour. So one of the things I'm going to be doing is now I'm going to work with the local library regarding the garden tour. And so they had like 20 plus houses on the garden tour. I think next year they're only going to do 10. They're going to do a smaller garden tour, and I'm going to help them with write-ups about the particular gardens ahead of time. And then we're going to work on marketing as well to make the garden tour a little bit bigger. They are also hoping to move it to a different weekend because that happened to be the weekend of Mother's Day. It also was the Denton Home and Garden Tour, which is really big in our area, or maybe it was the McKinney one. I can't remember, maybe it was the McKinney, and it was the McKinney one, but it was the Denton plant sale, Denton County Master Gardeners plant sale. There's a whole lot going on that weekend. So my suggestion to them was to move it to the first weekend in May or to move it to the last weekend in April, just to make it a little bit easier. Also, it was warm. It was really warm already, so that was kind of tough. But it was a really, really good time. I enjoyed the feedback. I really enjoyed meeting so many of y'all. I had chatted with some people about potentially doing just my own little garden get together, maybe in the fall or in turn next spring, maybe in March, for a little bit of garden planning together. I thought that would be really fun to do. So that is something I kind of have in the back of my head or potentially in the works for next year. Okay, so let's go on to the June garden goals. So let's talk about if you are going to be making goals this month. These goals are kind of they're a mix of some bigger goals and some simpler goals. I try not to do all big, huge, massive goals. There's just no way I can achieve that in 1 month. So I try to give myself some bigger goals and some smaller goals so that I can feel some achievement as we're going through the month. I don't want to fail on everything because I made the goal too big and too grand. And I think that's really important when you're writing any of your goals, whether it's for gardening or whether it's for life. Give yourself some grace, some bigger, some smaller. Or if you have the bigger goals, go ahead and break those down into smaller goals so they're more easily achievable, smaller steps. So there's something just wonderful about feeling that checking off on your checklist when you've completed something. So definitely kind of consider that when you are working on that. Another thing to consider, especially for my North Texas people or my people in the South, is we are going into the hottest time of the year, which is also the most dangerous time of the year to be gardening. So your garden goals might need to shift a little bit. Typically, my garden goals for the month of summer shift more towards planning for my fall garden because summer is not really a big growing season for me, truthfully. It's too hot to grow most things. So there's only a few things, sunflowers, zinnias, tithonia. I can't grow a ton of stuff during the summer. So it's really a lot of maintenance and a lot of projects, which is really fun. Like this summer, we're going to be looking at finishing up the new arch. We're going to be looking at staining the entrance to the shade garden, installing all those hanging crystals in the shade garden, pouring some concrete pads for some of those beautiful iron urns that I got. So definitely some more project-based things as opposed to planting and gardening. And then also during the summer, I do a lot of planning for my fall garden because I am going to be starting a lot of things from seed for my fall garden so that I don't go buy all the things. I find that the time when I want to be buying plants for my fall garden happens to coincide with the beginning of school for my kids. And so there's a lot of expenses at that time of the year. So by starting a whole bunch of them in June and into July, I'm hoping that's just going to give me a really good leg up on the fall so that I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. I've got some beautiful plants and I don't have to buy as much from the nursery. Okay, so with that being said, the first of my garden goals for June is lots of seed starting, especially fall annuals and hardy annuals. So I'm going to be doing my seed starting series like what I did at the beginning of the year. It's going to be a whole different round of stuff, but I'm going to be starting a lot of things from seed that I'm growing for containers and for beautiful flowers or I guess grasses in the fall garden. Some of the things I'm going to be starting are Dichondra Falls, Orange Majesty, Ornamental Millet. We're going to be starting a bunch of petunias. I've got like a whole stack over here. A bunch of petunias. I'm going to be starting some perennials such as echinacea. Also a ton of coleus because I'm going to have a lot of coleus in my fall garden, which would be really wonderful. Let's see, some zinnias, some profusion zinnias, so a lot of the shorter zinnias, some smaller, shorter sunflowers, a lot of different things to really fill out and have a very full fall garden, which is going to be my goal. Typically, I buy a lot of pumpkins to tuck within my garden, and that gets super expensive. And I basically use the pumpkins to fill in holes where I don't have anything growing. This year, I'm planning far enough ahead that I should have some really great stuff. It'll be interesting to see how well the lantana is still doing at that time of the year. If it's still doing really good, it's going to be really hard to pull out all that new lantana that I planted, only to plant other fall annuals in it. I don't know. It's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun one. But then I'm also going to be looking at starting some hardy annuals as well. Specifically, Lisianthus. We're going to start a bunch of Lisianthus in June, which I know y'all are like, Amanda, that's the wrong time of the year. So I like to start my Lisianthus during the summer and plant it out in September, allow it to grow on through October, November, and December. Then it kind of goes a little bit dormant, stays green, but goes dormant, no longer grows throughout the winter. And then come spring, it puts on a ton of growth. And then right now it's actually blooming out in the garden. We're going to be starting a ton of Lisianthus, not necessarily for myself, but for Kristen, because she needs a ton of Lisianthus for her new property that she purchased. And so we'll be starting a bunch of that, and I'll probably keep a little bit, but I already have a half bed of Lisianthus, which is stunning. I do like to pull and replace, so I have a couple of shorter varieties that I'm probably going to pull and replace with some taller varieties. The shorter varieties for you local gardeners, maybe I'll dig them up and pot them up so some of y'all can come pick them up if you want them. But we're going to be starting a lot of hardy annuals, probably looking at some snapdragons. We are going to be looking at some perennials from seed as well, specifically echinacea. Got a few other things I'm going to look through and get started, but I am excited to get all the seed starting process started again because I want to have a beautiful full fall garden, and this will be the most budget conscious way to do that. Okay. Number 2 on my June garden goals is to direct sow zinnias, tithonias, and sunflowers. So that's pretty much all that grows. at that time of at the hottest time of the year. I want us to start succession planting. I've already got in a good couple of rounds of sunflowers. I've got in a good couple of rounds of zinnias. I want to get in some tithonia. Basically all my tomatoes, they are just disease ridden now after all this rain. So I'm going to pull all those up and go ahead and plant tithonia in that bucket garden. That'll be really tall. Tithonia gets like 8 or 10 feet tall. I think that'll be really fun, and it produces beautiful orange blooms end of summer into fall, so that'll be awesome. But planting, just getting in the habit of planting different rounds of tithonia, sunflowers, and zinnias so that I can keep the flowers fresh throughout the entire summer season. And we will be direct sowing all of those, which is so easy. I mean, it's a lot easier than starting things inside, although I love the process of starting things inside, so I don't mind. But these do really well outside. The big deal will be to make sure that I'm watering them consistently until they sprout, and then while they're little bitty seedlings, just making sure that they're consistently watered until they have enough of the root system to go down a little bit further to support themselves. But we are going to be doing a lot of direct sowing as well. Number 3 on my list is to plant the remaining plants, including bulbs, caladiums, callas, and perennials. So I have like my own little nursery on my back porch, my own little personal nursery. A lot of it are calla lily and caladium bulbs that I started myself, and they are ready to go. They are dying to get out. So I need to get those planted. I also have a little bit of leftover verbena. I've got several perennials. I've got my elephant ears, several things that need to get out. A lot of them are waiting on containers to be set out after all of this French drain work. A lot of them just got held up because all these projects are kind of stacked up, and one has to occur before the next one can occur, before the next one can occur. So it's a lot of that. So a lot of that stuff is going to containers. The caladiums are going to go into the front porch for a summer front porch. And then they are also going to go in the shade garden, which is to die for gorgeous right now. And then all of the calla lilies are going to be going into the bed that also has all the Dara, the Queen Anne's lace in it. I'm going to be pulling back a section of landscape fabric, and I had landscape fabric in half that bed to battle amaranthus seedlings and celosia seedlings, which are just, oh my gosh, we're running rampant in that bed. So we're going to be pulling some of that back and planting this huge flush of calla lilies. So I'm really excited about doing that. And then of course, several perennials that need to get in the beds. And those perennials are going in those new garden beds that I just started. So once we get those filled out, we'll be able to fill up those garden beds, which will be very exciting. And we'll also be putting out the birdhouse gourds, which are probably already 7 to 8 feet long, and putting out the loofah as well. So we need to get those plants out as soon as possible. But especially because they need all that heat and they take a long time to mature and grow. A lot of them are already putting on flowers and are actually producing fruit. So I need to get them into the ground ASAP. But definitely getting that back porch really cleared off, and the goal is to do a lot of that this week and into next week, because I don't want very many plants left behind when I am going on vacation, because I don't want to leave that for someone to have to care for and take care of. So I want to take care of as much of that ahead of time as possible. Okay, number 4 on my list is to complete the new arch between the two gardens. Specifically, I want to get it done because I need to get those birdhouse gourds and that loofah planted. So they are going to be growing up and over that arch. I don't know if I'm going to get that arch stained before I let something grow up over it, but I think that's fine. That's fine. If I have to stain during, the off season, that's totally fine. I think it's more important to get those into the ground. And I haven't decided if I want to stain it the same color as my shade garden entrance or if I want it different. I don't know. And y'all know on big structural things like that, I really have to think it through, and I have to play it out in my mind to kind of get a feel for what it will look like. I don't know if I want it to be a color because I'm kind of thinking of a color for the shade garden entrance, or if I want it to be natural, or if I'm more of a natural wood stain. I don't know. We're going to have to see. We'll have to see it's going through that. But I got to get that arch up, and I got to get it up ASAP. So maybe this week, maybe next, but definitely before I leave so that I can get those gourds planted in the garden and so that they can just go bonkers and crazy. And also with that new arch, we'll be planting up those new raised garden beds, and we'll also be adding drip lines. So it'll be another opportunity for you to see how I do my drip lines. I've got several of that sprinkled throughout all of my videos as well, because drip irrigation is so much easier than most of us realize. Okay, and then number 5 on my list is harvest, harvest, harvest. Okay, so what I've found in the past is I wait on harvesting. I almost wait too long, and I wait until I have a big bucket full of flowers. But then I bring in that big bucket full of flowers and I have to make like 3 or 4 flower arrangements at once. I don't want to do that. I want to just gather and harvest like every day or the day after, every couple of days, harvest a handful of blooms, make a beautiful sweet bouquet, enjoy it, and then move on. I don't want to harvest massive buckets of flowers because when I bring them inside, it just feels so overwhelming to have to sit down and make so many flower arrangements right off the bat. And the reason I think that feels overwhelming to me is because I used to be a florist, right? I used to do a lot of production line work. I used to sit down and, do 20 centerpieces or 12 bouquets, and it was work, right? Having to do one over and over and over and over, right? And so with this approach, when I bring it in, it feels like work again if I have to make more than one. And I also want to just be out in the garden and just cutting and arranging in my hand, like all right there, instead of coming in and making like a really big production out of it. And I think that will allow me to be more loose and more relaxed about my flower arrangements, which I think will be good. I also want to be more accepting of the fact that I don't have to wait for a certain amount of blooms to bloom on a plant before I can make a flower arrangement, because I don't want to force myself to always make these big flower arrangements. In all honesty, most of us don't grow as many flowers to make big flower arrangements all the time, right? But we have flowers to make simple, beautiful ones, or like create some bud vases. So I definitely want to combat that whole giant flower arrangement, multiple flower arrangements direction, because it's just not a reality for me. So I really want to focus on smaller arrangements that I'm doing every couple of days, and I'm going to just be tacking them onto the videos. And so I think yesterday a video came out where it's kind of just me puttering around the garden. I think you're going to see a lot of puttering around in the garden videos for me, because a lot of times when I'm planning my videos, I'm just very set of like, this is the topic and this is what I'm doing. Whereas I really enjoy watching videos of other gardeners where they're just like, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this. They're just doing all these little tasks, and they're walking around their garden, seeing what needs to be done, and then that's what they're doing. So I'm going to do some more puttering videos. So if you guys see that up, I'll just be taking on multiple little tasks. And then hopefully at the end of those videos, I'm gathering up a little bouquet of flowers to arrange and show you all. Lots of y'all have requested more flower arranging videos. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be tacking on more of those each month too. And I already feel relieved. I already did the little smaller flower arrangement. I already feel relieved going forward with that. Like, I already feel better that like that's the direction I need to do, and much less overwhelmed regarding harvesting a huge amount of flowers at one time. So harvest, harvest, harvest is my number 5 for my June garden goals. Okay, so you can see that my June garden goals are very spread out. We have something just from harvesting flowers all the way to building structure, right? So we have from, very simple daily tasks to one bigger task. And I do want to say, I do feel like my June goals are going to be harder because I'm out of town for 10 days out of this month. So I only have 20 days to really accomplish it, which is not very much. So I'm sure that my grade report will be poor for the month of June, but I have high hopes. But I'm also doing like this whole week, I was laughing at myself. I was over at my parents' house chatting with them because my middle son is out of town on his scout camping trip. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll just redo his room while he's gone, right? So, because he's had a little boy room and he needs a teenager room. So, and I've been talking with my mom and dad because they love to do stuff like that. So they're going to help me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to do that this week. And then also I'm going to like hustle up and do a whole bunch of extra videos so that while I'm out of town, y'all don't have to go without videos. And I'm just planning all this, just not enough hours of the day. I'm just laughing at myself that I think that I can accomplish all this, but it's probably not going to happen. So just take a breath. It's okay. I really want to make sure that I do not, typically when we're going on vacation, I work full steam ahead, 150% all the way up until the moment we're walking out the door to go on vacation. I kind of don't want to do that this time because I'm exhausted the first few days of the vacation. So we might, during those 10 days I'm out of town, that we might not have as many videos, y'all. I just, we'll see. I want to get my son's room done as well and get it, all looking really great for him. So it might not have as much time for gardening. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I say that, but then sometimes I get a burst of energy and I'll do 3 videos in one day. And then like today I have a head cold and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So, I'm just shooting one video where I meant to shoot multiple today. But, lifetimes change. And I know you guys are really nice about it. Several of y'all have said I need a vacation. I don't know if that's a compliment or not. Do I seem stressed out? To y'all? I'm not really stressed out about the garden. It's more the heat that stresses me out. It's hard to want to get outside and garden when there's this kind of heat. So that's probably my biggest factor. If it were cooler weather, I would be knocking stuff out left and right. And like I was happy because today's high was going to be 86, but you walk out there and you're just drenched in a heartbeat because it is so incredibly humid and it makes it hard to breathe outside. It's rough. So we will see how those June garden goals turn out. All right. As always, I encourage you guys to drop a comment below and tell me what your June garden goals are, what you're planning on, what your thoughts are. Also, I'd love to know how you did on your May garden goals. Did you get A's, B's, C's, or did we fail? And either way is great. I think I just really like this video series because it kind of holds us accountable, but it's also just a really good reminder to set your goals for the month, to, reset yourself, take a moment and look at your garden and then make some decisions for the upcoming weeks for work, which I think is really good because I definitely have overall goals for the entire year, but which are more bigger, broader goals. But breaking them down into the months has been extremely helpful and fun. I just really, really enjoy it. It helps me refocus and then going back, seeing how I did the last month and then adapting my new month's goals to accommodate what I missed the last month. It's extremely helpful. All right, you all, as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Every time you like and comment, it helps grow my channel so much. But also, I just really enjoy hearing from each of y'all every day. I'm really getting to the point where I'm recognizing so many names, which is really fun. And I recognize y'all's tone about how you write your comments. And I really, really enjoyable. And be sure to check me out on my social media outlets, including Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or a decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.